Karen, just to be clear, you didn't do it.
We know who did it, Steve. We know. And we know who spearheaded this cover-up. You all know.
Yes, we do.
If John was beaten up and attacked in that house, who did it?
We don't know.
We don't know.
We don't know. And it's not for us to know. Somebody other than Karen is responsible for that, for the killing of John.
Roberta in the truth zone, mic hitting raw. Spotlight shining, she exposing the flaw. Debunking the myth, breaking their facade. This is Glass City, respect the squad. On these NYC blocks where the skyline flex big. Roberta Glass slicing lies with a truth rig. Innocence frosters, your stories unravel. She's a map through the madness of gritty gravel. Glass don't bend and facts don't break. She's a storm that's called, you feel the quake. Exposing tales stitched with crooked seams. Justice in the lens, shattered fake dreams. Screams about killers, painted heroes in disguise. She burning propaganda with fire in her eyes. No glamour for the guilty, she call it straight. She backs victims, the voice stay awake. Stats and receipts, no spin, no clutter. Cold cases whisper, she cuts through the mutter. Truth's her tempo, don't confuse the beat. She's standing for the real while you taking a seat. True crime's a block, facts the artillery. Spinning those lies, yo, she checks that misery. Tabloid tales get smashed, no time to play. She's glass hard, break the false and save the day. True crime's a block, facts the artillery. Spinning those lies, yo, she checks that misery. Tabloid tales get smashed, no time.
Okay, here I am. Hello, Debbie Martin. Hello, Cinnabuns. Hello, Taterbug. Thank you for moderating. Hello, Truth and Justice. Hello, Maid on Maple Lane, Stephanie. Red Check, Deb H, Markar, Brody Bro. Hello. Please hit the thumbs up on your way in, guys. So, I have a bunch of stuff to talk to you about, a bunch of stuff to show you. We're going to talk about the trial 3. And no, this is not, I'm not predicting a hung jury. This is a totally separate trial for Karen Read coming up. It's already in progress, my understanding, from the O'Keefe family to Karen Read, the civil case. Now, Karen Read has always made a connection in her interview. This is my memory. I hope I'm right. Correct me if I'm wrong. But with Vanity Fair, where she said, look, I would have let OJ go. I relate to OJ Simpson. OJ Simpson, who got off on the criminal case, who walked free for all sorts of different reasons, political, racial, lying lawyers. He had his own crew, his own dream team of lying lawyers that got him off criminally. And then he was sued civilly, where he didn't take the stand in his defense, much like Karen Read in the criminal trial. But then comes the civil case. And you can't skirt. You can't walk away. You can't keep silent in a civil case. You have to be deposed. You have to give evidence. Karen Read will give evidence in the civil case. She can't walk away from it. She can't hide behind her lawyers. So we're going to go through the civil case today. We're also going to go through what Karen Read's niece said in her testimony. We didn't get to hear it. John O'Keefe's niece, excuse me, about Karen Read, her uncle's girlfriend. She calls her the defendant. And Giannetti says, did you call Karen Reed the defendant? She was really confused by that question. Did you call Karen Reed the defendant when John O'Keefe were dating? Were you psychic? And did you know that Karen Reed was going to murder your uncle? And did you call her the defendant then? It would be really funny if she called her the defendant then. She knew about Karen Reed's criminal tendencies, criminal mindset. So it's also against the Waterfall Bar and Grill, McCarthy's. We'll go through it and we'll talk about their chances, all of the O'Keefe's chances of winning the civil suit. And certain aspects are strong, certain aspects are weaker. We'll talk about it all. One of the things they're suing for is Karen Reed's false narrative in the public domain. Yesterday, we talked about Hank Brennan for the Commonwealth's closing. What is everybody talking about? The most brilliant of all brilliant moments. It was so amazing. I didn't realize that Karen Reed hung up on Jen McCabe. But she didn't. She didn't. So as much as I think it was a powerful closing by Hank Brennan, let's get real. So I know reality isn't fun. It's better to fantasize and put these people up on a pedestal, but let's bring Hank Brennan down to earth, guys. I'm sorry. I know I got a lot of Hank Brennan fans in the audience. Can still be a fan, but let's know that his feet are made of clay and look at these clips that everybody's pulling out from his closing. The one thing they want to talk about is Karen Reed, how it shows her own consciousness of guilt when she gets caught by Jen McCabe. This did not happen. Didn't happen. You can look at Jen McCabe's own testimony. So I think I'm going to start with that first because that seems to be most pressing on everybody's mind today. Can even go through Jen McCabe's testimony a little bit just to play it clip by clip. Wasn't going to do this today, but I think it's important to try to dispel these myths before they gain too much steam. Nobody's saying, not even on the Free Karen readers are saying this didn't happen. They're all saying Jen McCabe's a liar. But it did not happen. It did not happen this way. There's also, Hank Brennan goes and talks about how Karen Reed is coming to terms with what she did and her emotional coming to terms and the shock. It was all calculated. It's hard to explain to a jury. And I think it's Hank Brennan trying to simplify and put into more human terms what Karen Reed, in human relatable terms, what Karen Reed did. That she came to terms that she hit him. She always knew she hit him. She always knew where he was. And she wasn't shocked on finding him. She wasn't amazed. She wasn't waking up. She wasn't groggy. We don't know that she slept that night. We know that her phone didn't move, but she certainly could have been on her laptop and put her phone down. I mean, we just don't know. Her laptop was never taken and seized, so we don't know if she slept that night. So, Hank Brennan also talks about in the closing, when she woke up, we don't know that she slept. We don't know what she did. It's all a mystery. It's all in the hands of Karen Reed, the very unreliable narrator. So let me just show you the clips I'm talking about. Is everybody up for a little debunking of some myths? I hope you are. I hope I know my audience is up for it, strong enough to take it. Okay, I hope so. I hope so. So here's what I'm talking about. If you didn't hear this clip, here's a little clip of it.
You know what she doesn't say when she calls Jen McCabe? When did he leave the house? What happened last night? No. She calls and says, I left him at the waterfall. I left him at the waterfall. See, now it's gone from panic to self-preservation. I left him at the waterfall. And Jen says, left him at the waterfall? We saw you in front of the house. Click. Hangs up. So then she calls someone that she doesn't know very well. She calls Carrie Roberts. But now she has to pivot because someone has seen her in the exact spot that John will be found soon. Whether she's the first one there or somebody else, John will be found. Maybe Lucky missed him. It's a snowstorm. You can't see, but someone's going to find him at some point. So she calls Carrie Roberts. It's no longer she left him at the waterfall. She pivots. She calls Carrie. John's dead. I think he got hit by a plow. Why do you think she chose those words? Why did she choose those words? Because she knew that there was a collision with a large motor vehicle, and she had to substitute her 6,000-pound Lexus for another big vehicle.
Interesting argument.
I think he got hit by a plow. And
I'm not saying she didn't say we know that Karen was on the phone with Carrie Roberts when she was doing the 507 love tap. Could Carrie Roberts be wrong? And this came a little later when she actually pulled out of the driveway and saw a plow and got the inspiration right there. She pulled out. Or we know that the plow passes her as she's passing the synagogue. Just trying to get you to open your minds. This is a narrative. Let's not get hooked into it. Let's not get restrained by it. But this is Hank Brennan's fantasy, his way of simplifying it for a jury with a whole new version of Karen Read, a Karen Read who comes to terms with the murder of her, that she murdered her boyfriend, and she needs people there to be around her when she finds them. When I think the more likely reason, she was mixing it all up, creating confusion. It's much harder to retell a story when you're creating a lot of confusion and chaos. I hit him. Did I hit him? I hit him. Did she say, did I hit him, or did I hit him? I hit him. I hit him. Did I hit him? Mix it all up. Get other people there so you have other people to point to. Get them to call 911. Get their voice on tape. Maybe you can point to them. Maybe they did something. Otherwise, it's just Karen. It's just Karen. She's the last person who saw him. It's her car. It's her that John O'Keefe walked out of it for the last 20 seconds of his life. It's her taillight in the crime scene. Get some more people there. She really wanted Catherine Camerano there. So let's talk about how it really happened. The reality of it, okay? The reality, not the misinformation, not the propaganda that Hank Brennan's putting out in his closing. Even though it's propaganda that we like, even though it's convincing, we might like it, we might find it convincing, it just happens to be not true. And here's where, it comes to, and when it comes to the civil case, when one of the complaints is creating a false narrative in the public domain, could Karen Read point to this and say, well, look at what the prosecutor did in front of 1 million eyes on court TV and every place else it was watched, when it was watched internationally, not even just in America. So here's how so the fantasy is that she calls, and when she gets caught, she wasn't there that night. She gets caught. Everybody's saying it's brilliant. But here's what really happened. Karen Read first called Michael Camerano 4 times. And because Michael Camerano did not answer her calls, Karen Read then called Michael Camerano's wife, Catherine Camerano. This call ends around 4:51:51, after which Karen Read instructed John O'Keefe's niece to call Jennifer McCabe, which she did around 4:53 a.m. Okay. John O'Keefe's niece put the call to Jennifer McCabe on speakerphone. Okay. It was after this call ended that Jennifer McCabe began to call Julie Albert. While in the process of doing this, her husband, Matthew McCabe, had said to her, "What are you talking about? We saw them outside your sister's." Jennifer McCabe ended the call to Julie Albert before the call was answered. The next call Karen Reed had again was from Jennifer McCabe. When Jennifer called John O'Keefe's niece back, Kaylee, at around 4:56, it was during this next call that Jennifer McCabe had informed Karen Reed that she and her husband had seen Karen Reed and John O'Keefe in her SUV outside her sister's house at 34 Fairview. Matthew McCabe testified, "The next call, we were informing the defendant that, wait, we saw your car. We saw you come to 34 Fairview. You guys were there." And I heard the response of, I don't remember going there. There was no evidence that Jennifer McCabe got hung up on by Karen Reed by the end of this call. Following the call, Karen Reed's next call was at 4:56:39 when Catherine Camerano called her back. And she did not call Carrie Roberts until 5 o'clock and 10 seconds a.m. And that call, Carrie Roberts testified in the first trial that Karen Reed's first words were, "John's dead. Carrie, Carrie, Carrie." From the second trial, "Carrie, Carrie, Carrie. John's dead." And then she hung up because Catherine Camerano was calling her back at 5 o'clock and 38 5:30 and 38 seconds. Oh my. I'm trying to keep it direct. I'm working from Innocence Vlog's excellent rundown of this. I mean, she's really a stickler for times and has got a real hold of this case and really devoted herself to keeping the facts straight because it's really important. So Hank Brennan, who is a defense attorney, when you're a defense attorney, you can play fast and loose with the facts and you can spin narratives like this. But when you have the power of the state behind you and you want the respect of the jury, it's not a good idea. And this is where we've seen there was a real strength with Hank Brennan and having someone who knew all the defense's dirty tricks and knew how to convince a jury with very little evidence. Now he has tons of great evidence to work with. I mean, this must be amazing as a defense attorney when you usually have just scripts and scraps of stuff. To have all this great evidence to work with to convince a jury. But he's still, he's spinning. He's putting his spin on it. So here's another clip. Check this out.
Jen McCabe and say, "Where's John?" She doesn't call Brian Higgins. Has his number, has been texting with him. "Hey, was John at a party with you? Did you see John tonight?" She knows exactly where she is, and she's frantic. So she wakes up Kaylee.
Is she frantic? Or is she play acting at being frantic? Carrie, 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 Jed, screaming, running around, creating fear, creating confusion. Mix it all up.
That young girl at the time. And she says she's panicked. She can't understand what she's saying. Call Jen McCabe.
Is she panicked or is she trying to get people in a fear state and in a submissive state, in a state of confusion?
Hey, call Jen McCabe. Why is she calling Jen McCabe? She calls Jen McCabe. You know what she doesn't say when she calls Jen McCabe? When did he leave the house? What happened last night? No. She calls and says, "I left him at the waterfall." See, now it's gone from panicked to self-preservation. I left him at the waterfall, and Jen says, left him at the waterfall?
Here I agree. This is all about self-preservation. Okay, I just want to point to something for as if I'm presenting my case to you. Have you seen Karen Reed's demeanor through the whole trial? She's been called the happiest murder defendant, cool as a cucumber. We've never seen her upset, besides angry at her lawyers. We've never seen her upset emotionally. She's always had a kind of detached, emotionless. So I don't think that this is full self-preservation. She's in self-preservation mode. I agree. But she's got a bag of tricks. I'll argue my case. She's got a bag of tricks and she's going to use them. She knows how to get people in a fear state. She knows how to get people. She also has to act surprised, right? What happened? She has to pretend she doesn't know what happened. Where is he? Where is he? She can't say, I ran him over. You want to go see his dead body? Hey, anybody want to go see John O'Keefe's dead body? I killed him last night. She has to pretend like it's an accident, like she didn't know. She doesn't know yet that she's got culpability. If it's an accident, that she found out later when she talked to Yannetti. Up to this point, she thinks, well, maybe she can play it off like an accident. She gets herself sectioned. I don't think she knew she would have to give over her blood for alcohol test.
We saw you in front of the house. Click. Hangs up. Hangs up. So then she calls someone that she doesn't know very well. She calls Carrie Roberts. But now she has to pivot because someone has seen her in the exact spot that John will be found soon. Whether she's the first one there or somebody else, John will be found. Maybe Lucky missed him. It's a snowstorm. You can't see. But someone's going to find him at some point. So she calls Carrie Roberts. It's no longer she left him at the waterfall. She pivots. And she calls, Carrie. John's dead. I think he got hit by a plow. Why do you think she chose those words? Why did she choose those words? Because she knew that there was a collision with a large motor vehicle, and she had to substitute her 6,000-pound Lexus.
He's 100% right there. 100% right there. Right on the money there. She's not saying maybe he got hit, maybe he got attacked by a serial killer. Maybe he got into a fight in the house. Hey, Brian Higgins, what happened in that house? I saw him go in. The only other he could have been hit by someone else's car, someone else's big vehicle, not my 6,000-pound vehicle.
For another big vehicle. I think he got hit by a plow. And so now.
Okay. So anyway, everybody's talking about it. Just know that that's just not a real narrative, and this will go into now the public consciousness as not the way it happened. Let's take a look at Jen McCabe's testimony from the first trial where she talks about these calls. Okay. That's the fantasy. That's the spin. Here's some of the more reality of what happened. Here's their first testimony. This is with Adam Lally, who always stuck to the facts. No spin Adam Lally.
When about was
I woken up to my phone ringing.
And did you know what time it was?
4:53.
And according to your phone, who was calling you at 4:53?
John's niece.
And so that would be John's niece, Kaylee, is that correct?
Correct.
And how old was she at this time?
I believe she was 14.
And she had just gotten into Bishop Thean, correct?
Correct.
She was in 8th grade going in, finishing up her 8th grade year of middle school, correct?
Yes.
Is that a normal thing, that Kaylee would be calling you at 4:53 in the morning on a Saturday?
No.
So you answer the call, is that correct?
Yes.
When you answer the call, who, if anyone, is initially on the other?
Initially, it's Kaylee.
And what, if anything, did Kaylee say to you?
That John didn't come home and Karen and we wanted to talk to me.
And even in that initial call when you're speaking to Kaylee, what, if anything, do you hear sort of in the background when you're talking?
Karen screaming.
And could you hear what she was screaming?
She was just screaming, Jen, Jen, Jen.
Fairly loudly, is that correct?
Extremely.
Now, at some point, does the defendant get on the phone with you?
She does.
And what, if any, conversation do you have with her at that?
She proceeds to scream my name multiple times, and she tells me that John didn't come home, they got into a fight, and that she left him at the waterfall.
And how do you respond to that?
I had just woken up. I was confused. I didn't know what she was talking about. I was like, what are you talking about? And then she, told me that they had gotten into a fight and she left him there. And now where is he? And she was just kept screaming my name over and over. And so then I remembered that Chris Albert had still been at the bar. So I thought, well, maybe John walked home with Chris because Chris lives close to the waterfall.
And so at some point that conversation ended and you recall how that ended?
I told her that I was going to call Julie and see if John had ended up with Chris.
I mean, another personality. I mean, this is real early in the morning after they've been out late. She's been up late. She's had 3 hours of sleep. She got her out and she went out in a blizzard to help her friend. This is how she's thanked. She's villainized and called a murderer. What an awful human being Karen Reed and her lawyers are, and Aidan Carney and everyone else. I know there's a lot of good people who get caught up in this innocence fraud campaign. There's a lot of psychopaths and dark personalities also. But, what a horrible thing to do. So I thought that was another great point that Hank made in his closing. Soccer mom just wanted to help find her friend who wasn't lost. Karen Reed knew right where he was. I mean, here she is involving. I mean, I really want you to think about why she had to call Carrie Roberts and Catherine Camerado and Michael Camerano, who she even called before. She didn't get an answer. Why did she have to involve all these people? Why didn't she call 911? Why didn't she stop her car after she hit him and call 911? And as Hank Brennan, another great thing he pointed out, so maybe you think, well, maybe she didn't want to get caught for drunk driving. All right. Maybe she didn't want to get caught for murder. But just to help John and not to put John's needs a little before her own, why didn't she call Jen McCabe and say, go out and make sure John is okay? We just had a fight and I might have accidentally hit him with my car. Might have accidentally hit him with my car. Might have hit him. That was a great point of his closing. He needed help. And that's a terrible feeling, when you're running out of life and you desperately need help and there's no one there.
So you hang up with her, and then what did you do then?
I called Julie Albert.
And did Julie pick up the phone?
She did not.
And as you were calling Julie, did you have any conversation with your husband, Matt, around that time?
Yes. He, had kind of shot up out of bed when Karen had called. When Kaylee had called, because Karen was screaming. And then he was, what's going on? And I said, well, I'm calling Julie because Karen, they got into a fight, and I was trying to explain it to him. And he said, what are you talking about? We saw them outside of your sister's house. And at that point, I hung up.
And when you hung up, Julie had not answered yet. Is that correct?
Correct.
Now, as far as
So she was even buying the narrative that she left her. She wasn't like, oh, right away. It was Matthew McCabe was like, what are you talking about? Left him outside the sister. Oh, right. Right. They never came in. Right. Click. Don't need to call Julie Albert. Click.
Miss Reed, is that someone who had your phone number? Did you have her plugged into your phone as a contact before that date of January 29th?
No,
So never had any kind of conversation with her over the phone as far as a text or phone call or anything. You didn't even have her information.
correct.
And so after hanging up while calling Julie, what if anything did you do then?
And then I'm not sure if I called Kaylee back or if Kaylee called me back.
At some point you get back in touch with Haley or leaves your phone, correct?
Yes, I get in touch with Karen again, and I say, Karen, we saw you outside of my sister's.
And what was her response to that?
She told me that she didn't remember going there, and then she started yelling, Jen, and then she was saying, did I hit him? Could I have hit him? And then she proceeded to say that she had a cracked taillight.
In other cases, like in other cases, this would be major evidence. This is just a little piece of evidence. Just this would be massive evidence against someone, their own admission. I heard her admit it. How many people did we go through at the first trial who heard it? Got really edited down this trial. Heard Karen Reed say it. It's very damning. Combined with the cracked taillight, combined with the taillight. If this had not had this innocence fraud campaign, you think we would be here on trial too? You think we would have gotten a hung jury? And every juror said that they had followed this case a little bit in the news. This is what worries me. Every juror has been touched by this propaganda. And when you actually watch just getting ready for this episode, I was just everything looking for this testimony it's really hard to find the direct. Everything is the cross. Jen McCabe caught lying, because they know that's going to get the big views. Did she, it's all Jen McCabe getting cross-examined about the 227 phone search, which now the defense team has totally abandoned. Earth to free Karen readers. Your defense team has dropped it. They can push it in closing, but they didn't present any witnesses. There's not one witness that disputes the Commonwealth. That's the defense lying down and accepting defeat. They can't find one hired gun. Richard Green is like, I'm out of here. I'm not ready to perjure myself a second time. I already knew I was wrong the first time, and that was pretty embarrassing to admit that in cross with Adam Lally, that I knew I was wrong, that they had to redo the whole Cellbrite program for my error in reading this. Jen McCabe deleted nothing. 227 is a fantasy made up by Karen Reed and her lawyers.
And this is while you're still in your home and you're in your bedroom, correct?
Correct.
And what was your response to that?
I thought she was honestly just talking crazy. And then she said, oh my God, I left him there. Like, she was extremely irrational. She said that it told me again that they had gotten into a fight. So now she was just kind of all over the place, just screaming. She was very hard to understand. So my brain started going, okay, well, if she left him there, where could he be? Who could he be with?
Right, because even Jen McCabe's not thinking he got hit. All right, we might return to this another day. Unless you want to see her other testimony that echoes this testimony. Do you? Do you want to see her echo the same testimony on how it, but I don't think Karen Reed gets in these panics. She worries for herself, but she always has this kind of cool inner core that's always calculating, always manipulating, always, trying to outsmart the system and outsmart the people around her. I mean, that's how I see her. And I think she knows that if she screams, if she's erratic, if she's contradicting herself, that keeps people in a confused state. Lawyers use it. They talk out of both sides of their mouth. Say one thing and say another thing the next minute. It creates kind of a odd feeling. Lazy Susan says, DePietro said the fight wasn't about Dunkin' Donuts. John didn't want Karen driving the kids because she was drinking too often. Don't know if that's true. I have no data to support that. I don't know if that's something he just made up. I don't know. Seems like a lot of people want to put their own narratives on this. And it's all helpful to Karen Reed. All this spin is helpful to Karen Reed. So when, we had it was a brilliant closing. It's one of the best closings I've ever seen. It certainly made me feel like Hank Brennan was talking right to me. But when you stray from the facts like this, they have a way of being twisted. When innocence fraud is involved, they have a way of being twisted and used. It will be used against you. Even if a lot of my audience attitude yesterday when I brought this up was like, oh, he was summarizing. But summarizing isn't really good enough when you're dealing with an innocence fraud campaign. You got to stick to the facts, just the facts. Put out a factual narrative. Every detail matters. And it's been a frustration with me. And I got a fact wrong. Let me correct myself from yesterday. Okay. So when Karen Reed text message Brian Higgins, Brian Higgins. She said John died, not John is dead. So just a correction there. But it's been a frustration with me in getting a hold of these facts and correcting myself and going back on things that I'm wrong. Another thing that I may be wrong on. Got to go back. Got to dig deeper. I'm sorry. Maybe I should bring this up another time where I can really give the person credit. Person left a comment that they dug into did the sensor on the car turn off at high speeds going backwards? Got to listen to Trooper Paul's testimony. Did he talk about the sensors being turned off going backwards? Does that happen in her Lexus? Just starting to dig in. So far, it looks like they may be right. That's maybe why we didn't hear about these sensors, this beeping. It only is under speeds 10 miles because who backs up at 24 miles an hour? Who does? But Karen Reed at 75% with your foot 75% on the gas pedal. Maybe the reason we didn't hear that the sensors were beeping at her is because they turn off at over 10 miles an hour. Going backwards. Very interesting. Got to dig deeper. Thank you. Thank you for keeping me factual and on the record. I will dig deeper and let you know. It's been a real point that I didn't understand why you didn't talk about that camera. I know the niece did. Let's switch gears now and talk about the civil case. So what is this civil case? So here it is, Commonwealth of Massachusetts. So even if Karen Reed gets off on everything, even the driving under the influence, she's got this to deal with. August 26, 2024 civil lawsuit brought on by the O'Keefes, Paul O'Keefe. He is the personal representative of the estate of John Joseph O'Keefe III. John O'Keefe II, John's father. Peggy, Margaret, Peggy O'Keefe, meaning Peggy O'Keefe, John's mother. And Peggy O'Keefe as a guardian of KF. Let's just call her that. I've called her Kaylee before, so I guess I'll call her Kaylee. All right. I'll call her Kaylee. Her name's out there. The plaintiff, Paul O'Keefe, is the surviving brother of the late John J. O'Keefe and it is the duty appointed personal representative of the estate of Joseph John O'Keefe, who died on or about January 29, 2022, at all relevant times. Okay, the plaintiff, John's father and surviving father of JJ and Kristen at all times, material herein. The plaintiff, John J., resided at 1 Meadows Avenue. Okay, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so it's all, these are all the main characters. They're suing C.F. McCarthy's, and they're suing the C.F. McCarthy's, the parent, I think this is the parent company or whatever, the DBA, which is, hold on one second. This is some serious lawyerville here. GS Hospitality. They're also suing the Waterfall Bar and Grill, okay, at 643 Washington Street in Canton, Norfolk. Waterfall has a registered agent, Jared Meehan. The defendant, Karen Reed, is an individual. At that time, she was residing at 481 Gilbert Street before she sold it in Mansfield. Okay, the plaintiff repeats, realleges, and inquires. Okay, blah, blah, blah. He was in the middle of 3 children in a tight-knit family. So here's the civil lawyer starting to spin. JJ was a 3rd-generation Boston police officer. After the tragic death of JJ's sister, Kristen, and brother-in-law, Steve, JJ took custody, guardianship of his niece, Kaylee, and nephew, Patrick, who were 6 and 3 respectively. Over the next 8 years until his tragic passing, JJ raised and supported his niece and nephew. After the tragic death, Margaret, Peggy, took guardianship of her grandchildren at all relevant times on or before January 29th. JJ and defendant Reed were in a dating relationship in the months, weeks, and leading up to January 29th. JJ and defendant Reed's relationship was deteriorating. During such time, defendant Reed picked fights, experienced jealousy. Here's this notion she was so jealous. And she wasn't pointing fingers as a way to, put mixed direct, take the heat off herself and put it on her victim, and had delusions of unfaithfulness. On or about January 28th, defendant Reed knew that her relationship with JJ had run its course. On January 28th, 8:51, plaintiff arrived at C.F. McCarthy's, but not before saying that she had a plumber over fixing her rusty pipes and he would be back mañana. We never found out in this trial or any other trial. Maybe in the civil trial, we'll find out if it's true, if this plumber actually existed. My thought is that he may exist as a person, but he certainly wasn't over at Karen Reed's house that night. We've never seen any text messages to prove any communications between the plumber and Karen Reed. Thanks, Jill Jane. Harvard, Yad. Thanks, Roberta. Check direct messages on X for video. Haunting and beautiful. Appreciate your passion for the truth. Big love and hugs to you and all in this home stretch. Thanks so much. I like those positive comments. So does anybody remember the plumber? Karen Reed's plumber, Richie the plumber, who she had over. It was delaying her arrival at the bar that night. She had a rusty pipe, even though John's father was a plumber, would have fixed it. And John was a plumber, my understanding. I maybe did some plumbing himself, could have fixed it for her for free, but she knew that would piss him off. So she was picking a fight and delaying her arrival with the plumber.
Everyone is waiting for me to arrive at the bar. At home in Mansfield, I'm making up a new co-star. His name is Richie the plumber. No hot water, it's a bummer. It's all a figment of my imagination. Call it a lie, I feign rightful indignation. Call the plumber, I got a rusty pipe. Hot water is not working, I'm starting a fight. Sure it's a lie, but it's a little one. Gotta get my boyfriend under my thumb. John says he and his papa would have fixed it. If only this broken pipe in real life existed. Causing pain and suffering is what I do best. Putting my boyfriend's patience through test after test. Richie, my imaginary plumber, is at Home Depot, hoping that story will get a rise out of my boyfriend and his libido. I'll arrive at the bar showing up late, make him angry right out of the gate. He's slow at feeling lovey-dovey, I'm downright twisted and scummy. I'll down many drinks and run him over after it gets late. Scream and cry, it's you, John, who I hate. Leave him to die in a blizzard, inflicting pain, I'm a wizard. Get Jen to call 911, have the whole town pointing fingers when it's over and done.
There it is. I don't know. That line always gets me. Always makes me laugh. If only this broken pipe in real life existed. Okay, here we go. See if McCarthy's was licensed to distribute, sell, or serve alcohol. Here's the problem with these lawsuits. You know, I hope they win everything. I hope they take every dime. And I've already predicted Karen's going to move to Florida or some such state. We're her friend Ingrid Curtis, by the way. We've seen them. We've seen her in the last couple of days of the trial, Ingrid Curtis, who has a home in Sarasota. If you don't remember, Karen Reed, when they came to get her phones for the witness harassment, they were investigating witness harassment done by Karen Reed and her lawyers, Nate and Carney. They came to get her phone and they just watched her phone go to Sarasota, Florida, like travel all the way to Sarasota, Florida. She escaped to Sarasota, Florida. Then it came back. When they came back to get it after she came back, she made them wait 45 minutes, the police, until her father arrived, like her accomplice, her father. Meanwhile, actually, this is a little bit like ADD theater, but hold on one second. I just went, let me see if I can play this for you. Her father gave the most insensitive, I don't know, they're all so insensitive. There's a couple of things I want to show you. Let me share this tab. We have some video. This is really curious to me. This is Robert Alessi. I think this is his daughter who posted this, Laura Alessi. I think so. Correct me if I'm wrong. Not 100% certain, but I think so. This is in April 2025. Robert Alessi waxes poetic on Karen Reed, all the wonderful qualities of Karen Reed. Wonder after the trial if he would still be saying all these things. I'm sure he would publicly, but privately, I wonder if it's a different thing. But take a listen. This is one of Karen Reed's many, looks like a fundraiser for her.
Aspect of the defense team. Karen Reed.
Yay, killer! Woohoo! Psychopathic murderer! Woo!
I'm sure if anybody's had one conversation with her.
Unfortunately, you don't want to be behind her car if she gets angry, because she might run you over. Other than that, she's a great person to be around.
You recognize this, but I want to tell you this from the inside. She's
not a great person to be around. She's a horrible person to be around. She's controlling and manipulative. But other than that, if you don't mind those qualities, if you like being around psychopathic killers, she is a great person to be around.
As brilliant, is as insightful, is as strategic, and as determined as any attorney I've seen in practicing law my entire
You know, us lawyers really think like criminals, but now we got a real criminal to help us think like a criminal and manipulate and gaslight. And find loopholes and try to get over on the system, gain the system, what all criminals do, gain the system, and what all lawyers try to do, basically, defense lawyers. Gain the system.
If you want to know where the brains, the strength, the resilience, and the determination come from every day, look no further, look no farther than Karen Reed.
Well, it's really easy to have strength and resilience when you don't have any sadness, any connections, any real feelings, deep feelings.
And you want to know where that comes from? Dr. Reed and Mrs.
Right. The psychopath doesn't fall far from the psychopathic tree. I agree, Alessi. The psychopathy comes right from Dr. Reed. Is he a doctor? Is he a PhD? Oh dear.
Reed.
The lionizing of this killer and her horrible family is so awful, isn't it?
We're never going to stop.
That is true. That is true. They will never stop. If she gets convicted, they will never stop appealing on everything. They can't appeal on any of the things that I brought up about the closing, because that is not evidence. Okay, so I don't know if I would be talking about if they could appeal on it. I'm not trying to make it easier for Karen Reed should she get convicted of something to get off, certainly. Oh, my Lord. But they will never stop. This campaign will never end. That's what the thing I've learned about innocence fraud campaigns. They never give up. They never stop. They will keep trying to get Karen. If she gets any prison time, they will be trying to get her off on everything. You saw her go all the way to the Supreme Court. Not the Supreme Court of Massachusetts, the Supreme Court. She wanted to be heard on this stupid made-up jury nonsense about the jury sheets that a monkey could have filled out. They couldn't understand them? Come on.
We're never going to quit. We have an expectation, we have a goal, and we're steely-eyed and steely-focused to achieve it. We need every one of you. We appreciate it. Free care.
Oh my God. It's scary, isn't it? Isn't it scary? Isn't it scary? So there's that. Hold on one second. I also... Is everybody cool? Does everybody see that? Let me go to the comments, make sure everybody can see it. He's doing this for free, Mandy. For free. I know, but I thought he was did he call him a doctor? Didn't he just call him a doctor? I thought he was a PhD. Doesn't he have a PhD in business or something? Finance, something like that? Yeah, I'm baffled because she's so unlikable. I agree with you, Vala. I'm with you, Vala. I don't see it either. I don't see it either. But Karen Reed's father, I'm pretty sure I put it in my bookmarks. Hold on one hot minute. I've been bookmarking like a crazy person. Oh, also, other crazy thing. I meant to share this with you, right? This is this goes into unbelievable, absolutely unbelievable things. File this in the gall of Karen Reed. But I meant to share this right off the bat. Sorry, guys. This is a little bit like ADD theater, but hang on there. Hang on with me. We're just taking a little detour. We'll get back to the civil suit. Karen Reed asked that she pick the balls for the alternate jurors. The right, and she wanted to pick she wanted to pick the balls and have them all displayed, that each numbered ball be shown individually and then placed one by one into the wooden drum where the process is visible to the court counsel and Ms. Reed. I think they knew that this was going to be rejected and then they could complain about corruption. Why didn't they let Karen Reed pick out the juror numbers herself? That the drawing of the alternates from the drum be conducted in open court on the record and in the presence of the court counsel and Ms. Reed. That the number of each ball selected be clearly announced, shown to all parties. Do you think she had like a bunch of like fake balls in her in her pockets ready to try to bamboozle the court with so she could pick the juror she wanted? And then placed on a designated stand and displayed in full view of the court counsel and Ms. Reed, that optimally Ms. Reed here be permitted to draw the alternate juror balls from the drum as a further safeguard of neutrality and to reinforce confidence in the fairness of the process. This procedure would ensure the selection process is fair, with Karen Reed doing it, reviewable and consistent with the defendant's constitutional rights. I mean, come on. I just thought that was wild. And hold on one second. We have this craziness. Like, these are the free Karen Readers out there. This is how they're treating a murder trial, like dressing up in costumes and stuff. I mean, wild. And I hope I still have it. It's her father's interview, here's Karen Reed's interview. Take a listen. After leaving court, the jurors decided, after closing arguments, take a listen. So that's Ingrid Curtis, the friend with the house in Sarasota in the beige, blonde hair.
Guys, we have no time
No. How do you feel about the close? I got a gag order, so I can't talk. All right. And for you, how did you feel? Your close is good, all right?
Keep it going, guys.
Hey, get right on.
How are you feeling about your chances?
Thanks, Mike. Where's Karen? Oh, there she goes. Come with me. Come with me. Mike's got us. Mike's got us.
Tell your liaison.
You got it. You got it.
Karen, how you gonna spend verdict watch?
Flashing the love you sign to her murderer groupies. And let me see if I have this. I might have to take a break. I don't think so, though. I'm pretty sure I have it. And yeah, here it is. Here's her father. I played this for you before, but it just, now that it's Father's Day, happy Father's Day to everybody. Listen, this is, just keep in mind that he did this the morning of closing arguments. At early in the morning, William Reed sat on the courthouse steps and did this speech. Take a listen. I mean, knowing that the O'Keeffes are there, they've lost their son. This is a murder trial.
Well, I wish I wasn't here, but this is what corruption is all about.
Yeah, you know what? Peggy O'Keefe sure wishes she weren't there. She wishes her son were still alive, and she wouldn't have to be pulled into court and now civil court, trying to get justice for her son, mourning her son, being given a life sentence of grief for the rest of her life. She sure wishes that. This minor inconvenience for you. Minor inconvenience for you. You still have your daughter. Even if she goes to prison, you'll still have your daughter. Oh, yeah, this guy.
Just look at the injuries. They don't correspond to being struck by any vehicle. I want justice for John O'Keefe, but that may come at a later day.
Yeah, you listen to the accused killer's father is going to tell you what justice for John O'Keefe is. There's no such thing as justice for John O'Keefe. This is the closest we can come to justice, the closest thing we have to justice in our society.
It's all about the science. You heard Dr. La Posada, you heard the ARCA witnesses, scientists from ARCA who are hired by the U.S. Attorney, the Department of Defense, Department of Justice. So, this is the final stage.
Daniel Wolf was never hired by the Department of Defense.
This kitchen. Attorney Jackson, on its closing. Digest it all. Take it in. Because someday it could be your son or your daughter.
You know what? It could be your son or your daughter murdered, and an innocence fraud campaign, and the media doesn't think like this. They just think about, how do I get what's mine? How do I get money? How do I increase my career? How can I join with the side that's going to help me? And that's how these innocence fraud campaigns, they use the media like this. And the media loves to spin for them.
God forbid. Thank you. Thank you.
Not a question, not a hard question. Not a hard question. Okay, back to the civil suit. So they're suing. The O'Keefe family are suing C.F. McCarthy's, the Waterfall Bar, Karen Reed. And they said that Karen Reed arrived about 8:58, and they served her an alcoholic beverage, and through its agents served alcohol beverages to Reed on about 9:13, 9:20, 9:33, 9:57. This is 7 drinks, guys. 9:22. I'm sorry. Let me start again. 9:13, 9:20, 9:33, 9:57, 10:22, 10:29, Karen Reed consumed such drinks. 7 drinks at C.F. McCarthy's. We know 9 drinks altogether, 2 at the Waterfall Bar. So this, they have a better, I think a better chance at winning with C.F. McCarthy's than the Waterfall, where she was served 2 drinks. C.F. McCarthy's, through its agents, servants, or employees, served defendant Reed 7 alcoholic drinks between 8:58 and 10:29 on January 28th, 2022, during all relevant times at or before 10:29 on January 28th, 2022. Defendant Reed showed signs of intoxication while at C.F. McCarthy's. It's a hard thing to do because nobody ever said she looked that drunk, but just by serving that many drinks and seeing her, I mean, you see her pouring drinks into other drinks and drinking them down at such a fast rate. This is where I think they have the better chance. On January 28th, at or about 10:40, JJ and defendant Reed left C.F. McCarthy's. At about 10:40, defendant Reed was allowed to carry her alcoholic drink out of C.F. McCarthy's. On January 28th, at or about 10:54, JJ and defendant Reed entered the Waterfall together. At all relevant times, Waterfall was licensed to distribute, sell, or serve alcohol. Defendant Reed walked into the Waterfall carrying a drink from C.F. McCarthy's. At all relevant times on January 29th, 2022, while at the Waterfall, defendant Reed showed signs of intoxication. I don't know. This seems harder to prove. Between 10:54 and 11:54 on January 28th, 2022, the Waterfall served defendant Reed 1 shot. There's a typo. 1 shot and 1 mixed alcoholic drink. Reed consumed such drinks. On January 29th at approximately 12:10, defendant Reed left Waterfall. At approximately 12:11, JJ left the Waterfall. At all relevant times on January 29th, 2022, between 12:11 and 12:36, defendant Reed was under the influence of alcohol and unable to drive a motor vehicle safely. At all relevant times on January 29th, 2022, defendant Reed drove JJ to the residence of 34 Fairview to Canton, Norfolk, Mass. Defendant Reed and JJ had been in an argument the night of January 28th. How much do you want to bet that clip of Karen Reed saying she shouldn't have been drinking and driving that night comes into play in the civil suit? Into the early morning hours of January 29th, 2022, after JJ got out of defendant Reed's vehicle in front of 34 Fairview Road on January 29th, 2022, Reed drove her SUV and hit JJ. So all you have to prove in a civil case, you don't have to prove things beyond a reasonable doubt. It has to just be likely true. 51% more than 49% not. Okay? It doesn't have the same bar of evidence, doesn't have to meet the same bar. So they have a really good chance of getting Reed on this. And all with the data that we have from the criminal trial will all come into a lot of it will come into the civil trial, I would think. The JJ's phone data, the pieces of Karen Reed's taillight, John O'Keefe's DNA on the taillight pieces, John O'Keefe's DNA on the back of her car, hair consistent with John O'Keefe's hair on the back of her car, Karen Reed's own words, all that stuff will come into play and then we have her deposition. Fact-finding deposition. As a result of Reed's SUV hitting JJ on the January 29th, 2022, JJ was knocked down onto the ground at front of 34 Fairview Road and suffered serious injury or death. So at all relevant times, Reed drove her SUV and hit JJ. She failed to use any care to avoid creating an unreasonable risk of harm to the public, and JJ voluntarily took an obvious risk under the circumstances, knew or should have known that death or serious injury was reasonably predictable, persisted in a clearly negligent course of conduct over a noticeable period of time, was impatient with reasonable precautions, was deliberately inattentive to predictable hazards of her actions, and or was deliberately inattentive when there was a risk of great and immediate danger. She intended the reckless conduct that resulted in JJ's injuries. Her conduct made it highly likely that someone named JJ would suffer serious injury or die. She knew or had reason to know of the risk of grave injury or death to JJ, or said risk would have been obvious to a reasonable person, and she intentionally or unreasonably disregarded that risk. JJ's injuries or death resulted from defendant Reed's decision to engage in the conduct referenced above. So, and then it goes into her relationship that she caused. She knew that Kaylee was a vulnerable minor who had lost her parents tragically and depended on her uncle JJ, who became her surrogate parent, and that she caused serious emotional injury. And it goes, and they said that Reed's blood was drawn with a reading of 93 mg/dL, which means that her blood alcohol levels between 0.13 and 0.29 around the time when she drove the SUV and hit John O'Keefe. So they say that the CF McCarthy's just did not hire competent employees, that they were serving so often. Its decision not to provide adequate safety training to its employees. It's a decision to violate its safety training. Its choice to retain unfit employees. Its choice not to supervise adequately its employees. And they say CF McCarthy's acted with gross negligence, acted with willful, wanton, and reckless disregard for the safety of others when it served an intoxicated defendant Reed, and deliberately ignored the appreciative risks or voluntary incurred the obvious risks of serving defendant Reed when she was already intoxicated. CF McCarthy's persisted in serving Reed alcohol well after it knew that defendant Reed was visibly intoxicated. So that's what that lawsuit is about. And I would think that should she lose this suit, which she very likely will lose, I don't know about CF McCarthy's and the Waterfall Bar and Grill in their liability and all this. You'd have to talk to a civil lawyer. I have talked to a civil lawyer about this before. Thinks that Karen Reed's in a bad position with all her statements that she's made to the press. Daddy Reed is a PhD. Thanks, your latex spouse. Karen is a threat to society. She will red rum again. Thank you. Thank you, Roberta. Thank you, your latex spouse. Wesley loves Octoberfest. Here's some more help for the kitty door. Thank you very much. Wesley loves Octoberfest. But I would think that we'll see Karen Reed manipulating, gaming the system, moving to Florida, moving around her assets, being anything. If she's liable for a lot of money to the O'Keefes, that she will do exactly what O.J. Simpson did and will avoid handing it over. Also, we found out a little bit more about what Kaylee said in the trial. So first she was asked to point out Karen Reed, and Kaylee looked at Reed from the corner of her eye and said she's wearing blue. She's now 17 years old. She was 14. I said, yeah, I think I got that wrong. She was 14 at the time of O'Keefe's murder. She was questioned by Assistant District Laura the great Laura McLaughlin. She has a brother who is 3 years younger. She plays softball, still lives at the O'Keefe's home with her grandparents, called her Uncle JJ. At the last minute, I and a couple other reporters were allowed to enter the courtroom, stand in the media corner, and take handwritten notes during the niece's testimony. This is from the trial channel. The judge thanks the jurors for their patience and their understanding about yesterday. She asked 3 questions about staying away from info about the case. Okay, jurors all enter. The courtroom doors reopen. Okay, I'm going backwards. Okay, so now we're in the testimony. Niece says O'Keefe came into her room and fell asleep in her bed. So do I need to go backwards? So 9. Okay, so I need to go from the bottom up. Okay. Niece says about Reed started dating O'Keefe around in 2020. She stayed over about once a week. Later daily, she said she would get food and shopping with Reed. When asked about a relationship with Reed, the niece pauses before saying that on some days they were on good standards, but not on others. She would kind of ignore me, but it felt like a coldness towards me. Reed listens to the niece, but has no expression on her face, holding a finger to her ear. Niece says Reed's SUV had a screen that showed the backup camera. So there's where we hear about the backup camera. But did it beep and flash, or was the speed too high? My listener says yes, that the beeping would be disengaged at that high speed of 24 miles an hour in reverse. Very interesting new development. Niece says O'Keefe and Reed relationship changed at the end of 2021. They were fighting a lot, usually more towards night, says O'Keefe. Seemed frustrated while talking to Reed on the phone. She was very upset, angry. Niece says of Reed, her voice louder than her uncle's. Judge instructs jurors upon testimony, says it only can be used to determine Reed's state of mind. Several young people, early teens, are crowded onto the benches where the O'Keefe family sits. So it sounds like maybe Kelly had friends there. Niece describes a New Year's trip to Aruba, where she says she witnessed a fight in her hotel room. Says her uncle came in and told her brother to get off his iPad. Says Reed then entered the room and stood up for her brother. So she said, oh, he can be on the iPad. And then Kaylee said Reed started yelling that John had kissed someone else. And then says JJ started saying it didn't happen. Says Reed was very loud and very upset. Kaylee said O'Keefe came into her room and then John O'Keefe fell asleep in her room on this cruise in Aruba. Niece says there were more fights when they returned home to Canton. She refers to Reed as the defendant in her testimony. I remember hearing him say that their relationship was good but had run its course. Says Reed was upset. O'Keefe asked her to leave. She didn't want to leave, and she didn't. Says O'Keefe then more aggressively asked her to leave. It was more stern. Says Reed followed O'Keefe upstairs. He wouldn't let her into the bedroom. She began to bang on the door. I could tell there was tension. They were cold towards each other. Says the tension surfaced a couple times per week. Says she heard Reed on the phone saying she and her brother were worried. Heard O'Keefe say it's run its course. On 128, she and her friend were celebrating getting into private high school. Her brother had gone to a sleepover. That's really an important detail in that calls that Karen Reed leaves John O'Keefe. She says, your kids are here. No one knows where you are. She knows. I mean, it's fictitious in 2 ways. Now, Hank Brennan pointed out that no one knows how you are. No one knew John had been hit by Karen Reed's car except her. And no one had asked. But she knew that the younger child was at a sleepover. So it wasn't the kids, it was just the one kid and the one kid that she had tension with. Kay. O'Keefe went out, sent her a text and said, asking if she was okay. Per house rules, she plugged in her phone in her uncle's room and went to bed. Really important. So she also got a text message telling from John O'Keefe. They text message each other right before she went to bed at around midnight. And then she was woken up by Reed at 4:30. She was yelling to wake up. She was like very frantic or acting very frantic. Niece says Reed asked her to use her phone to text O'Keefe. No response. Says Reed was on her phone. Remained frantic. Says Reed asked for phone numbers. Asked her to call Jen McCabe. She put Jen on speakerphone and handed it to Reed. Reed told McCabe O'Keefe had not come home. McLaughlin asked if the nurse heard Reed say anything else. There's a long pause before she said yes. The defendant was asking what could have happened. Could I have done something? Could he have got hit by a plow? McLaughlin asked her about her testimony, then hands her a transcript to review. After looking through the transcript pages, the niece says Reed said several things, including, it was like maybe I hit him. She says she heard the statement just once. Says Reed remained frantic. She says that she dropped him off. McLaughlin began to ask if Reed said anything about arguments. Defense attorney Yannetti objects. Judge sustains. The niece says she had never seen Reed as frantic or acting as frantic as she was that morning. She says Reed left for Jen McCabe's house about 20 or 30 minutes later, then returned with McCabe and Carrie Roberts. Describes McCabe as the mother of a childhood friend and her basketball coach. Says both McCabe and Roberts were friends with O'Keefe. Says she still has a relationship with McCabe today. After the three women arrived, the niece said McCabe came into her room to comfort her. Says McCabe was very level-headed and Reed was still very frantic. Says Reed did not try to comfort her. Sidebar. During sidebar, the niece smiles and says something to the court reporter. She smiles over at her family. A court officer warns someone seated with the Reed family that they're not allowed to eat in the courtroom. After the sidebar, the judge tells jurors they cannot consider the niece's statement about not being comforted by Reed. Oh, my Lord. Yannetti begins his cross-examination. He's speaking in a much softer voice than he used with other witnesses. Notices that the niece didn't... He asked the niece if she used to call Karen Reed the defendant. And she didn't understand the question. I read in someone else's notes. But instead called her Karen. Niece agrees that Reed took her to get her nails done once a week. I don't remember if she stayed with me. And apparently Karen Reed doesn't like to get her nails done because it hurts her nails or something. Yannetti I read in someone else's notes. Yannetti asks if Reed took her to doctor's appointments. She answers no. Niece says Reed went to her sports games, went on a tour of her school with her, helped with a couple school projects, sometimes straightened her hair the night before school, planned a scavenger hunt for one of her birthdays. Niece says she and her brother sometimes stayed with Reed at her home in Mansfield. Yannetti asks about the Aruba trip, asks if Niece remembers getting ice cream with Reed. She doesn't. Repeats that O'Keefe fell asleep in her bedroom. Says she came back later and found her uncle was gone. So she went out into the couch and let him sleep in her room. They had it sounded like they had such a special relationship. And that sounds like to me that the niece was really the other woman that Karen Reed was very jealous of. Yannetti asks about I had just gotten dumped by my 8th grade boyfriend, so I was in crisis. The niece says, and there was laughter in the courtroom. Niece says that O'Keefe returned to the room. Reed followed. Reed was trying to stick up for her younger brother about the iPad. Niece says she never saw any physical contact between Reed and O'Keefe. Says that when they returned home from Aruba, the couple's relationship had changed. It was the same amount of time, but it wasn't the same. Yannetti steps away from the podium, whispers something to the defense attorney, Jackson, then to defense attorney Robert Alessi. He's done with his questions. McLaughlin returns for a redirect. Niece says this about the couple's relationship after Aruba. They just seemed less happy to be around each other. She adds, there was a lot more tension and fighting. She says the fighting in January of 22 was more frequent than before. Yannetti returns for a second time. The niece looks down at the floor, not at Yannetti. He asks if Reed took her and her brother to a Bruins game that month. I mean, how desperate is this by David Yannetti? She says, yes, let me weaponize every nice thing. to help my killer client. She says yes. Her testimony concludes. Outside in the hallway, her aunt, Erin O'Keefe, hugs her and escorts her down the stairs. The other young people in the courtroom also file out. Okay. So that's just, wanted to share that with you. And that's really, sounds like that is going to be the real she's the only, she seems like, her pain and suffering is really one of the key ingredients in the civil suit. So they're asking for this to go to trial. We're going to have another trial with another jury. This is going to be trial number 3. If we get a hung jury on this one, we may have trial number 4. Unless he may be right that this will never end. But that's what I had for today, guys. Tomorrow I'll be on Verdict Watch in the morning at 8:40. I'll get on. And we will wait for the verdict together. So I'll have a running watch for the verdict. I don't know how much entertaining I'm going to be doing. I don't know if I'm going to just be entertaining for straight, whatever. Maybe we'll watch some of the trial. I don't know. I don't know what we'll do. But we'll hang out and support each other as we wait for this verdict. Before I go, hold on one second. I want to thank Jen Buell for supporting the channel. There we go. Please support the channel. These live streams are supported, made possible by you guys. Links are always in the description of every episode. You can send me a Venmo, buy me a coffee, or become a Patreon supporter where you get access to content you can't get anywhere else. I will be back tomorrow at 8:40 to watch with you. Have a great night, everyone. Thank you for listening.
I hit my boyfriend with my car. It wasn't an accident, but with lying lawyers I'll go far. Lying lawyers and witness harassment. I'll avoid prison. It was snowing. I pushed the pedal down, hit him hard. Now the legal system I clown. Innocence fraud campaign to save my skin. Making money, truth is my second victim. Carry, gin, gin, like John, you were my mark. My innocence fraud campaign is my biggest hit. I pushed the pedal down, hit him hard. Now the legal system I clown. Innocence fraud campaign to save my skin. second victim.